Let's talk about the Bright Triad and bringing a little bit of candlelight to the world at a dark time. It's important to realize as we look back on these 10 videos that I just did on psychopaths and narcissists a little bit and destructive personalities and how to spot them. It's important to realize that those people make up a very small percentage of the population. Their influence, though, seems all around us, partly because they recruit what I think of as dark apprentices. They recruit people who believe in them, and without whom they would be nothing. They would just be a minor force in human affairs. But the people who go along with them, who see them as confident or wise or healing or whatever it is, and follow them and are undiscerning, are the people that are making the darkness darker. So to see through all of this, to have the courage to understand when we're being lied to, when we're being manipulated, is already a move that starts to alleviate the darkness, which is one of my reasons for doing these videos. To refuse to be taken advantage of, to refuse to destroy somebody else's reputation because some narcissist or psychopath doesn't like them and wants to use you as a tool of retaliation. To understand with clarity what's happening in the world and not be fooled by all the lies. That already is a step out of the darkness. The Bright Triad I mentioned is my own term for what I think of as care, faith, and humaneness. Care is a baseline position, looking out for each other, which if we're raised properly, we do. Faith in human nature and humaneness in terms of refusing to be cruel to each other, to be decent instead. So a word about faith, I'm not using it in the religious sense, I'm using it in this sense. If you were to gather up all the psychopaths and malignant narcissists, the destructive kind who don't manage themselves, of course, and ask them for their theory or their philosophy about human beings, they would all agree. They would all say human beings are basically selfish, destructive, dark beings and need to be managed. And that's the dictator theory of human nature. There's no dictators who think well of human beings. So part of the Bright Triad of care, faith, and humaneness is standing up for human nature, for the best in us, seeing and discerning the shadowy parts, but saying, what about the parts of us that are loving and creative and self-realizing? The parts of us that want something better for everybody, the parts of us that inspire, what about all that? So that's part of alleviating the darkness too. And it's important to remember as well that there's an idea floating around out there that religion is responsible for a lot of misery in the world. So it can be, but it depends on how it's used. So religion can be either cover or care. The person who says it's against my religion to empathize is using it for cover. And it's not so much that their religion makes them that way, it's that they're already cruel and cold. Whereas for somebody else, they might say, my religion says that we ought to be kind to each other and that we ought to look out for the stranger. And our sacred books say this numerous times as well. Maybe we should live like that. So that's a person whose heart is either open or opening. It can go either way. But the heart comes first, and the kind of religion follows. As a wise person once said, by their fruits, in other words, how people actually act, you will know them. So I admire the character Portia in Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice. She says, how far that little candle throws his beams, so shines a good deed in a weary world. And I like that image of bringing some light to the world in whatever way we can, being humane with each other, caring for each other, having faith that we can be better and that we can do better. And one thing I would leave you with is that in terms of having money, having smarts, having looks, power and influence, you can have all of those and not leave the world a better place. But if you care and make that care a part of your life, if you look out for other people, if you have faith in human possibilities, And if you refuse to treat people like things and objects because you insist on being humane, then you are a beacon in the dark. Light your lamp. Thanks.